Hello, hello, and we are back again, people, with Full Court Press in Transition with Coach Q. And I have a special guest, someone that I've looked up to for years, someone that has been really close to me, mentoring me through not just basketball, but life. And our connection was through basketball, but our staying power has been through the friendship and brotherhood of life, and iron sharpen iron, making each other better. And this gentleman is the head women's basketball coach at Maryland Eastern Shore. They had a wonderful year, 20 plus season this year, victories. Went to the MEAC championship game before Corona had stopped it all. Thank you for being here today, Mr. Fred Batchelor. What's up, my man?
Man, my pleasure, Q. It's always good to be with you. We talk a lot, so I hope this doesn't get too informal because it's real easy in our communication over the years. So I'm looking forward to being here, and thanks for having me.
Man, pleasure. So let's jump right into it. Fred, who are you and where is Fred from? Where is Fred from, if those that don't know where Fred is from?
Well, I'm originally from Rough Buff, Buffalo, New York. It's a place in New York where people like to say is people outside of New York, they think it's New York, and it's as far from New York as Maryland. It's a little different place, but it's a great home. I love it. I'm looking forward to going back there soon to see my mom. Okay. But I'm a Buffalonian at heart and originally from Buffalo, New York.
All right. Now, I knew you were from Buffalo when we were out one night and somebody made a comment about the Knicks. And now, if I'm not mistaken, you were like, well, that ain't real. They made a comment. You said that ain't real New York. Buffalo's real New York. And so that's when I found out you were from Buffalo.
And they were probably referring to the fact that we're the only team, the Buffalo Bills is the only team that plays in the state of New York. The Giants and the Jets, they all play in New Jersey. We play in Buffalo, in New York State. So I always tease out all the New Yorkers who love their teams and say we're not really New York, but we're the only NFL team that plays in New York State.
Gotcha. Because I knew y'all were going back and forth, which was funny. So Fred, how did the game of basketball enter into your life? Where did you start off at?
It pretty much saved my life, I would say. Basketball was always something that was special to me. My mother, who was a single parent, she got pregnant with me at 14, had me at 15. My dad was 15, 16 when they made them get married, and I was the first grandchild on that side of the family. And it was my mom who drove us to basketball practice, who put us around coaches. And I fell in love with the game, and I've always loved it. And I feel very, very fortunate and blessed to, do this. It's like having my cake and eating it too. Mm-hmm. To be able to grown up the way that I have, loving the game, and to be a part of the game as a profession, to be able to walk out my office and go take shots and be around the game has just been an incredible blessing for me, and I really appreciate it. But I've always been in love with the game of basketball from, since the first time I was introduced to it.
Yeah, so with that, Fred, you talked about your parents at an early age. How did that what was the dynamics of being raised in that environment with parents so young? Were you around your grandparents as well? Like, how was that dynamics, and what did that contribute to who you are today? How does that contribute to who you are today?
A lot, Q. My mom was a single parent because my dad, they made them get married so young, they didn't know what they were doing. And so my grandparents, my maternal grandparents, were the ones that really provided for us and took care of us and provided us with the security of home as a baby growing up. My mother was young. My grandparents were both blind. My grandmother was blind. My grandfather was blind. We grew up in a housing project. But my grandmother was one of the toughest ladies I've ever been around. And she put me through college. They say that when I was born, she took off work a year and rocked me for a year.
Really?
And they say I never cried. So they said they couldn't spoil me for whatever reason. So, and I'm the oldest grandchild. So my family has always really been my support system, and I've always been their support system. Not having any uncles. My blind grandparents had 3 daughters, poor, blind in the projects. My mother was the baby of the three, and then she's the first one to come home with a kid. But we were really a spiritual family. My grandparents raised us in the church, and they made my mother and father get married, made him get baptized, and they got married. And but my grandmother was really probably the most major influence in my development and in my nurturing, in the absence of my mother being such a young mother. But to this day, I've lost my grandmother, but my mom and I are very, very close, and I'm very, very fortunate to have the relationship that I've had with the women in my life.
Mm-hmm. Now, with that, Fred, that is a good transition point to walk into. Those influences, how those influences of those women prepared you to do what you're doing and what you've been doing with the women that you've been coaching over these years? How has that helped you, and what lessons have you taken from your mom and the women in your family to raise and build strong young women?
Well, it's kind of interesting because I had no idea that I would be coaching women. That was not my plan. I've always wanted to coach since I knew about a profession that I would have to take on at some point. And I've always wanted to coach. I never knew that I would end up coaching women. And I just completed my 20th year coaching women. And it's been one of the most rewarding experiences that I've ever had. And I couldn't imagine myself doing anything professionally, anything else. But I think I think I was born with a strong woman side. You know, I've heard, I'll never forget, a friend of mine was telling me one thing. He said, "You got a strong woman side." I said, "Hey, man, what are you trying to say?" And he was like, "No, I mean, in the sense of you have a sensitive, nurturing side of you that really kind of resonates with the female species."
Mm-hmm.
And I've been very fortunate that, and I don't know if I could have ever done this if I didn't have a daughter. Mm-hmm. Having a daughter kind of completed everything. And she is my world, and she's 20 years old now, but having her, and it's funny, I just finished 20 years of coaching, and she's 20. Right. You know, when they offered me the position of coaching women, that I had to really think about it, but it was my daughter that really led me to believe that this was something that I could do, because when she was born, every man looks at life, looks at women completely different once they have a daughter. And having a daughter for me really changed my perspective as a chauvinist, as a man's man, about really being somebody that women can depend on, and the power of young women. So seeing the strength of my mother, my grandmother, and now my daughter has really led me to, I think, be a better influence with young women altogether. And if not for them, I'm sure I wouldn't be able to do what I've done over the last 20 years.
Man, amazing. And I think that's the kind of stuff that people need to hear in women's sports when we're in a period where I feel like men are being run off as far as in our profession. Because there are some men in the profession that truly want to empower and believe the empowerment of women. And so I think that's really important for people to hear, Fred. And it's just an amazing deal to witness as you, and I personally know some players that have played for you and that have talked highly about what you've done and what you do there in your program. And so kudos to you and everything that you and your staff are doing. Now, Fred, we're going to transition into another direction. And I want to talk about something with you and with the audience that you're taking a part of with me. You're in the co-authoring program, the Champions co-authoring program with me. And I want to kind of set the stage for people who don't know. The co-authoring program is a program that I'm working with and created for this particular project, which is Coaching from the Heart, the Untold Stories. And I'm looking for coaches out here at all levels and any sport to tell their story. And so Fred has agreed to participate, and I just want Fred to tell a little bit about the first chapter that he wrote, very interesting, of why he wrote that chapter and what kind of led him in that direction. If you don't mind, Fred, with that chapter that you've given, just a little tidbit so the people can look forward to what you got coming.
Well, first of all, I think it was a great opportunity, and I thank you for that. I walked out of, it's funny, this year was an amazing year, probably the most amazing year. And I didn't realize that this was my 20th season coaching women's basketball until today when I had to send you that bio.
Yeah.
And it was today that I realized it. And so it's amazing that when I look back at this year, it was really trying. The year before last, we lost 60% of our offense. We had some great players that graduated, and we struggled building. We struggled. We were at one point in February, we were in last place in the MEAC, which we had never experienced in the time I've been there. And then all of a sudden, things turned around. We ended up winning our last 5 games and going into the tournament and knocking off the number 1 seed, who was on a 15-game winning streak.
Remember that too.
And it wasn't dramatic as we've been there before. When we've done this before, it was a little more dramatic. This one was more like these kids actually showed up, and there was no surprise from beginning to end. I don't think it was a surprise from them or it was a surprise from me. So it was amazing to see the transformation of these young people. And I realized that it was culture, that it was the culture that has sustained us. And I remember one of my professors talking about the fact that, culture eats leadership for lunch daily. And I watched these kids develop and they never quit. And I can't take any credit for that. It was the quality of these kids, but what I will take credit for was creating an environment where they were able to mature to that point. And when the coronavirus hit, we were on our way waiting to play the winner of the next game, and we were very confident in our next opponent, and we felt that this was going to be the year that we were going to bring the first championship to University of Maryland Eastern Shore. And then all of a sudden, life as we know it changed.
Yeah.
And so when that happened, I came home and I said, you know what? It looks like I'm going to have some time on here. I'm going to write a book. And it sounded good to say, but people don't realize how difficult that is. And I take my hat off to those that have done it. And when I talked to you and you talked about the fact that you proposed this initiative, I said, wow, this is great, because I get a chance on a smaller level to get involved with being an author by just writing a chapter, and then get the experience of what this is all about, this new business venture, and understanding the dynamics of writing and getting published. And so from someone that had already done it, so it's not like you need me to write a book. So when you offered me the opportunity to become a part of this, I said, and then I realized I really ain't in the mood to write a whole book anyway. So a chapter would be right up my alley at this point. And it just seemed like a no-brainer for me. And the other part about it for me really is that I trust you. So when you're involved with somebody that you trust, you feel confident that your best interests are going to be included in the project. And I'm looking forward to what this is going to bring. And it also kind of helps me evolve and grow as somebody who's probably looking at less years of doing what I'm doing and preparing myself for what's next, and having an opportunity to be involved in a venture like this. I'm greatly appreciative to you and this project.
Thank you, Fred. And that is one of the main things that I really, truly, in going into this, and I'm a product of 2 published books and a co-authoring joint that we just put out. And we just put out he just announced the conference of everyone that's in that book. We're doing a huge conference webinar with everybody that was published in that book. And so those are the keys that are really, really, that I take away is, one, it allows you to transition into another area of expertise. 2, when you're looking to move out of in something, there's an initial credibility with being an author that I've learned. And then for me, the opportunity to leave a legacy, to leave something behind for this world is what really kind of captured me 10 years ago when I started writing my first book, Get Off the Bench, Get Into the Game. And then when I wrote the second one, which was actually the first one I published, was From Chumps to Champs. And it was due to, like a lot like you, it was due to an experience. When we won the national championship, and people kept asking me, like, what did it feel like when that confetti hit? And what did it feel like when, you see your kids just overcome adversity? And so I was like, man, I have to write about this. I have to put this down. And so that's where those inspirations came from. But I would love to take full credit of the idea, but I got the idea for being part of a co-authoring program, and I was just like, hey, let me go and see if there's some coaching stories out there that people need to hear. But Fred, I appreciate you being a part of it, and I look forward to this project with you and many of the other people that are part of it that we'll have on this show. Now, Fred,
well, I would definitely I would definitely encourage anybody that's interested in doing anything like this, or had that thought in their mind but said no, they can't do it, or it's too big. I would definitely encourage them to look into this, because it's a great opportunity on a smaller level to learn the business of sharing your story. And I think we all have a story to tell. So I would encourage anybody, and I'm going to be talking to people to see if there's opportunities for those who really would like to do something like this, because when you talk to coaches, we have all the stories in the world.
Yes.
And I think people will love to hear them. So I tip my hat off to you, even though it was somebody else's idea. It still takes something for you to make it your initiative. And I'm just thankful to be a part of it.
Well, I appreciate it, man. And like I said, I really believe that what you said is very true. The stories in coaching are absolutely amazing. They're funny, they're comical, they're historic, they're heart-wrenching. They're all the things that you can think of. And if you spend any time at the Final Four socializing, you've heard these stories. You laughed and joked, and that's probably one of the biggest things that I think when we get together with the circle of friends that we have. It's the stories that just kind of keep you entrenched and locked into one another. And I think what has bonded us together is those stories and camaraderie and brotherhood and our sisterhood with the people that are there. Fred, thank you again. Fred, one of the things I want to ask you, what is one or two of the books that you're reading right now?
I just purchased a new book that just had delivered to me by a friend, All In, and it talks about trust. It's about trust, building trust within your organization. And the interesting thing about it is it talks a lot about the Philadelphia Eagles and their run when they won the championship. And I just know in my heart, and 17th year at Maryland Shore, the championships will be coming. That was always a goal, was something I was always kind of believed and was confident about. But now I know that they are coming. And I just want to make sure I do everything I can to facilitate it happening. And so I've been trying to get into more leadership books like that. And then also read some things that I'm big on books that choose you. Ever since I watched the movie The Hurricane, and the guy chose the book. So I'm big. So I'll go through a bookstore, and it's been really difficult because we haven't been able to go. Yeah. But I usually go to a bookstore, and I picked up the last book I picked up. It was regarding the 23rd Psalm, and he broke down the 23rd Psalm. And in that book, I just picked it up. I felt it was for me. So I do a lot of reading books that I believe are organically meant for me to have. And any book that's gifted, and I get gifted a lot of books. So I have a ton of books that I can go through my book bag right now. I have two of them in my book bag, one on my nightstand, another one on my desk, and I'm constantly looking through them. And I've got to a point where I no longer read them completely as much as I read a chapter here, a chapter there, a chapter, and I go back as they grab me. But right now, the All In book is the one I'm most focused in on in regard to helping my kids develop a level of trust.
And I tell people all the time, I'm big on culture as well, leadership, trust, and I really believe the reason why student athletes, men and women, play for you is because they trust you, they believe in you, and trust is part of that culture, and so. I'm really interested. All In, huh? Who's the author? Do you remember?
Yeah, Rob Holman.
Rob Holman.
Rob Holman. Here it is right here.
Okay, I'm gonna look at that in myself. Okay.
Yeah, so it's not a very tough read. Really good read. But I'm a big John Gorman guy.
Okay.
I'm big on John. I love his parables. We did
Get on
we
the
did the
bus.
coffee. We did the coffee bean this year.
Okay.
We did the coffee bean. I bought the coffee bean for all our kids to read. We read it as a team. I also shared it with my president and with my athletic director. And my president shared it with her cabinet and her staff. So, you know, it's an incredible story. If you don't know, I would encourage you to look it up. It's a real special story. So we try to find things like that every year. We share a concept with our team, and we buy a book and share those concepts from that book with each individual every year. Every season, we change it up from year to year.
So I would encourage you to buy mine. So I shared my from Chumps to Champ with my dean of students at TCC, and she shared it with and they went through it because of the concept of how we broke it down, building the team and building the atmosphere. And, you know, and it all started with, I believe, the culture and the atmosphere of, you know, it's like my mom always used to say, you always have your house clean because you never know who's going to stop by.
Sound like a mother.
You know, and so house always clean. So I thought, like, I take that into business. Like when you walk into my office, you walk into our locker room, I wanted our kids to always know that, you know, we were always on. Like no matter what, we were always on. And it's no time to turn the switch on and scatter like roaches to get stuff. And we're always on. So when you're always on, then you're always prepared for anything that comes your way unexpectedly.
Well, Q. I just so you know, I probably was one of the first ones that bought your book.
Yes, you were.
And I think I'm looking forward to that idea that you just came up with you doing some work with my team this summer, especially in light of the fact that who knows what we're going to be doing with them and helping build a championship culture. And I think it'll be a great idea for us to utilize that book and utilize you in the flesh and working with my kids and coming in and doing some things. So you just ignited a whole another idea to what we had talked about previously that I'm looking forward to digging into.
Yes, sir. Well, anytime, would love to. It would be my honor. And that's what we're here for, to add value to one another. Fred, I've had you on here for a good while. Let me ask you a couple questions how I end. Now, if there were going to be a book, what would that title of that book be about your life?
That's an interesting question. And I have a lot of things. I think about resiliency. I think about leadership. But on a lighter note, I probably would say, especially in light of what we talked about earlier in regard to the influences of my grandmother and my mother and my aunts and all of the women that I've dealt with, as well as the kids that I've coached, young ladies, and my daughter. And not saying this in a bodacious kind of way, but I think the ladies' man.
Okay.
And I mean that in every sense of the word in a positive way.
Yeah.
Not in the way that most people would think, but I think I'm a ladies' man. I think I understand women to a degree. I think I appreciate them and their strengths and their frailties and their and them being vulnerable, but yet just being strong. I think they're incredible. And I've been very fortunate to be around a lot of women that have had huge influence in my life, from my teachers. I've always had special relationships with my teachers, not just female teachers, but male teachers. But the females, they were like mothers. You know, they were like mothers. They were like aunts. They were incredible. They had incredible influences on me. So I think in the sense of the ladies' man is a product from a lady.
Mm-hmm. And there's strength. Like I really believe that there's strength in that, because and I don't want to go biblical, but you just key something in me. When you read the Bible and it talks about wisdom, the Lord God, Jesus, he refers to wisdom as her.
Seek her. Search for her.
Yes.
yes.
And so, man, I started studying that, and and I think about my mother and all the wisdom that she poured into me and all the things she is giving me over the years and still giving me in her spirit. And then I think about my wife and her infinite wisdom of the things that she protects me from, because I'm so,
Mhm.
this and that, and but I think that is a fitting and beautiful title of that, and that's something you might want to keep on there. Just get your subtopic.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. We need to work on how we. Yeah, we need to make sure we keep that in. But I'll tell you the one thing with my daughter, man, that's it. And I think about this. I would never want to disappoint her.
yeah,
You know, I have a son who I love to death. That's my man. I love him to death. But my daughter, I don't think I could live with disappointing her in this life. So, the influence that they've had on me as a female species have been incredible. And I'm very thankful and blessed.
awesome. Last question. In a movie, who would play you in a movie?
I have to go with Andre 3000, man. That's my
Andre?
man. That's my man. That's my man. I like to think I'm as smooth and cool as he is,
Okay.
but I think he could pull off any character. I would
Yeah.
love to see him in more stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, and he's just a guy that I really, really, I can't remember the movie he played in, but I've always just been fascinated with him as an artist.
Yeah. One of them was, if I'm not mistaken, um, I'm looking at it, but the cowboy movie he was in. I'm going straight blank on the cowboy
I'm
movie.
gonna have to look that up. I didn't even know he
Yeah,
played in the
yeah,
cowboy movie.
yeah. Andre 3000 played in the cowboy movie with Big Boy. Um, I'm gonna send it to you because my wife will know it.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Please do. I hope it's on Netflix. I need something to watch tonight.
yeah. I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you.
All right.
Fred, man, anything that you would love to share with the audience before we head out?
Well, the last thing I'm gonna say is that this whole everything we're dealing with the pandemic and just life, the one thing that makes things special is relationships. And
Mhm.
I just think that that's something that is the most special thing that we have as human beings. And I'm just so appreciative. I remember the first day I met you down in Florida. I believe we were in Florida at
Black
a
Coaches
BCA,
Association.
Black Coaches Association, and you came on that roof, and you were introduced, and we hung out that day, and we've been friends and close friends. But more than that, you talk about me being a mentor. You've been a mentor to me. Iron sharpens iron, and I just appreciate having good brothers in my life, and relationships are the key to all this, and that's the thing that's going to carry us through all this as well.
Yes, sir. Well, man, I sure appreciate it, and I thank you, and I love you for that. And you all be safe, and I look forward to seeing you soon. This is Coach Q. Again, another great episode. We had Fred Batchelor, the head coach of Maryland Eastern Shore, on the Full Court Press and Transition with Coach Q. We'll see you next time.